All right. And action.
How have you guys stayed so in love after all these years?
That's some...
Good.
And you! I am not afraid of you! I'm in charge! We go back!
What's going on?
Dunno. Maybe we've broken down.
I'm gonna have to ask you to go ahead and move your desk again. So,
no.
if you could go ahead and get it as far back against that wall as possible, that would be great.
No.
Who cooks the ratatouille? I demand to know!
Are you sure there's nobody else in the house? Would you like to go upstairs and check? No. Thank you. Thanks for everything.
first sold out.
Now, you're an arrogant little pissant, aren't you? I advise you mind your manners.
I don't give a damn. My son's gonna live. Maybe you guys haven't figured that out by now. I'll do whatever I gotta do for him to live.
Is she in there?
Get off me!
Son! Is that my daughter in there? Is that my daughter in there?
Fools.
I need to update. It's been a couple years, but I got to keep moving forward. Like I said, just remember to have fun at what you do. And don't let me forget, I tell a story about the Hulk at some point today, because it's a good one. It's a good one. Well, I could tell real quick, I guess, right now is a lot of things in my career, as I now, refer to it as, or in my progress. Some people say, well, you're in the right place at the right time, and I have been. And the thing is, but I put myself there. And the thing you have to think about when you do that is I lost more opportunities to do things. They picked somebody else, or I wasn't there at the right time, and I can count more of those than the actual opportunities that I got. But I never let it get me down, and I just always persevered. Like you say, you always persevere, and not obsessively so, but I just kept going, recording music and working on movies, and just, okay, I missed that one, and I missed that one, and then one comes along, and then David Lynch liked me. It was like, wow, okay, I got one little break there. But the King Kong thing was, I was working with my partner Chris Boys, and we had just started Lord of the Rings, I think, at the time, and I remember he was saying, hey, I got to do this movie for Disney, and you want to mix it with me? And I said, well, yeah, Chris, I'd love to. I mean, what is it about, and what's the script? And he goes, well, it's one of these theme park rides. And I went, oh, great. I said, theme park ride? I said, they've been trying to do those theme park rides, and they don't work out. I said, I'm going to do the Hulk because I want to work with Ang Lee, director Ang Lee, and who did Sense and Sensibility, and I really enjoy his work. And Gary Reichstrom had asked me to do Hulk, and I said, Chris, I'm going to do the Hulk instead. I said, I'll pass on that. And the movie I passed on was Pirates of the Caribbean. But nobody knew it was going to be a big hit, and that's what I mean. And what really hit home was not too long ago, probably, a couple years ago, when I was putting this together. I had the DVDs out, and the Hulk fell out, and I think he was, 10 years old at the time. My 10-year-old son said, hey, the Hulk, I want to see that movie. And I was like, you don't want to see that movie. He's like, yeah, no, I want to see the Hulk. I said, yeah, I did the Hulk instead of Pirates of the Caribbean, And he was like, yeah, whatever, Dad. It doesn't matter. I want to just see that movie. So I said, okay, I put it on for him. For 2 hours, he watched that movie. I came in, I said, Jordan, how was the movie? He goes, yeah, it was okay, Dad. It's good. I liked it. He goes, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. He goes, so you did the Hulk instead of Pirates of the Caribbean? And I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, that's correct. He goes, bad move. So there you go. I mean, and I got a lot of those kind of stories, but that was one that just went, ugh. Because you don't know at the time, what you just kind of go a different path, and who knows where it takes you. But the next clip is what a re-recording mixer. This clip is taken from the King Kong docs, and Peter Jackson had put together what it is I do, and Chris is in there and several other re-recording mixers, and talking about what my actual job is. I mean, and I'll give you an overview. Is what I do is I am the final mixer, or what they call a re-recording mixer, and that label got put on 30, 40 years ago because what would happen was there were guys who, they decided to call them re-recording mixers because, okay, production sound was recorded on the set. Sound effects department was hired, and they went out and recorded sound effects for the film. A composer was hired. He recorded the music with an orchestra. If there was source music, they went and got records, or it's CDs or MP3s now, and whether it's on a radio or something, and all these elements come together. It's like a big, I refer to it as almost like a salad. There's the lettuce, and all these different elements come together, and it's my job to balance and mix them all up, mix them together. So that's what I do. I mix them all together and with the director on how they want the scene to play, or the emotional content in the scene, or whatever direction they want to go in. And so all these different departments supply me the sounds, and then I mix them and I re-record them because they've already been recorded. I re-record them to another device. That device at this time is Pro Tools, but it used to be Mag Film, it used to be MMR8s, it used to be, it keeps changing, but the essential process is still I take lots of sounds, sometimes hundreds of tracks, and we combine them down and we mix them into a listenable format with balances, so that people enjoy the film. My career, I started out at a college, Berklee College of Music, and moved. I didn't know. I just wanted to work in music. I loved music so much, and so I got out of school and came back to the Bay Area because the school was on the East Coast, and I couldn't get a job. It was very difficult. It still is very difficult to break in, not only post-production, but in some of these artistic sides, because there's, it's a limited number of people, and it's not an easy field, any of these fields that are here at the school, but there's always a door that's going to open at some point. Always seems to be one. And so I eventually did. I had to work for free at a lot of recording studios in the Bay Area. And then I had to get a real job because I had to pay rent. I had to live. So I'd work a full day and then go at night and work at Hyde Street Studios in San Francisco, or Starlight Sound in Richmond. There was small studios that would do internships, and they would call me and say, we got a session. And so I would, okay, I can be there at 6 o'clock at night, bang. And a lot of times music sessions went late into the night, so it worked out so I could work a day job. I was exhausted, but I really loved being in the recording studio and learning as much as I could, and the school had taught me a lot, mostly about, taught me basic things. And one thing I wanted to say about that clip was, yes, that was patch bay in there. And yes, I still have to plug cables from time to time. It's getting less and less, but whether you do it electronically or with an actual patch cord, you're going to be patching things in and out of stuff. So. But I worked at recording studios. I worked at internship bases, sometimes most of the time for free. But what I did do was I went to all the major studios in the Bay Area, which was The Plant, which was Fantasy, and some of the bigger studios. And I dropped off my resume and said, here I am, this is what I want to do. And every one of them were like, okay, great, we got it, thanks, see you later. I'm sure it just went right into the trash. They're not supposed to do that, but I'm sure it got filed wherever they file those resumes. because they were getting them like, you know, they'd get 3 or 4 a day, if maybe more. And so I worked the internship, and then I would contact the studio manager again, like at Fantasy or at Hyde Street, and you know, when I wasn't on at Hyde Street, and say, I'm still here. I would call them up. You know, the first time I'd go in and actually make an appointment and deliver my resume face-to-face, because I think face-to-face is the best way. Even still today, even with Facebook and all these other things that you can do, eye-chatting, and I still think face-to-face contact is the best contact of all. Because all the body language, there's something about it that is lost in the other translations. But I would go, and then I would call them and say, I'm still here, I'm working at Starlight Sound, I'm working for Bill Thompson, I'm working for Ken Cassie, you know, he does mixes over there. I did sessions, and they'd be like, okay, great, keep us informed. You know, they were always very polite, but it was always very difficult to get in, and so I continued to do that, and then after about 2 or 3 months, I would make another appointment, say, I want to come in and see you, I want to sit down, and okay, fine, you know, yeah, come on in, you know, they would be like, I'd come in, and everybody was very charming, but no job. So, but eventually that paid off, because, I don't know, 8 months, a year, I don't know, but it's probably a year. I was a building maintenance guy. That's what I did in the day, and I was moving up the ranks in that. I was running like 20 properties, and I hated it. I was just like, this is not what I want to do. And so eventually I got a phone call, and it was Fantasy Studios called and said, we got a position open. And I was like, you do? And you're calling me? Yeah. Are you still interested? Yeah, I'll be there in like 3 minutes. And they're like, no, I'm interviewing a whole list of, I got about 100 people to interview. I was like, oh, great. Okay, well, tell me when to come over. And bang, made an appointment, went over. And I literally, Nina was the studio manager, and she says, you've been coming to see me for, I don't know, 8 months, a year, talking, and she goes, I have 2 positions open. I was like, what? She goes, I'm offering you 2 positions. One, there's 2. There's a runner, or there's a tape transfer position. And all I could say was, which one pays more? I got to pay rent, because the amount of money they were talking about to the amount of money I was making was less than half. So if I was making, I think at Fantasy I got hired for $4 or $5 an hour, so I was making 12 or 15 at the time doing building maintenance. So I had to cut my entire expenses less than half. But hey, I said, this is what I want to do, and that's what I did. And I jumped in the recording studio, and I got hired there, and it was a blessing. And it was really tough, and I made ends meet. But hey, I was doing what I loved, and again, those questions kept coming. Am I having fun? Yeah. Am I loving it? Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm making tape copies. I took the tape copy job, paid a little bit more, paid like $1 more an hour. But I took the tape copy job, which allowed me also, you know, sessions were going on at Fantasy, and then when an engineer needed help, they would yank the tape copy guy. Hey, you know how to patch, you know how to do this. And I did have a leg up, and that was one of the things that helped me. She offered me 2 jobs because of my education. Because I know the guy that took the other job, and I had went to college, and I knew how to line a tape machine, and I knew how to patch cords, and I was working at studios, and she knew some of the people I had touched bases with in the Bay Area. So she had already she knew, okay, you know how to do this stuff already. Yeah, I don't have to teach you. Yeah, I don't have to sit. And I said, yeah, I can do that. And so then a couple sessions I got thrown into. Yeah, I knew how to put up a mic. I knew where to place it, you know. And then I got to be friends with all the recording engineers, and producers came in through. And eventually, you know, that just kind of led its way up. And the next thing you know, an engineer doesn't show up, and a producer's running down the hall. I need an engineer. He didn't show. Can you engineer this thing? Yeah, sure. Get over here. And the next thing you know, you're engineering. You're shaking, but I was engineering. I don't know. I blanked it out because I probably did a terrible job. I mean, Satriani was one that John Kunenberty was the engineer, and he left one evening, and Joe was like, I want to keep recording. Can you do this? And I was like, I don't know what do you want. I want to record a harmonica. I was like, sure. What the hell do I do? Okay, here's the microphone, and Joe kept looking at me. Are you sure you know what you're doing? I said, yeah. So we recorded it, and then after that, it was like, was fine. You know, it was great. John could leave and go to his family, and I could carry on recording Joe if he wanted to stay. And there was a lot of bands like that, and eventually they put me on staff at Fantasy as a recording engineer. So I recorded everything from spoken word to Foley to ADR replacement for movies to albums to yeah, everything. As a recording engineer, you record everything. And as a recording studio, even now, I'm sure it's the same. I mean, you're scraping to get any kind of work in there. Even back then, when studios were still pretty big, but you wouldn't always get the big albums. You'd get a few big albums, and then you had, other people coming in. So I was always doing those kind of things, and eventually the film thing, I was doing Foley and ADR, and I met a lot of film editors and producers and not sound designers at the time, but supervisors and different people and picture editors, and I really got along with them when we were in the studio and recording talent. And there was a certain point where I was like, the studio thing isn't going anywhere because I keep getting pushed off on these big, projects. I mean, I did MC Hammer, I did In Vogue. I was still only making $12 an hour. These guys were making millions of dollars. They were making platinum records, and I was the engineer on these things, and I wasn't getting anything. I mean, MC Hammer he always bumped me a little bit of a tip at the end of the night, and that was very nice because I got to go to Hawaii because of that. But and some artists will do that, and I just thought, this isn't really going anywhere. I'm doing film and this, and I had friends that have went on and done big records and moved on, and I got passed over many times on records, and one was a local band was looking for an engineer here many years ago, and there was like 20 engineers they were interviewing in the entire Bay Area, and they had just signed with Warner Brothers, a record label, I think, at the time. And they were a new band, and I loved it. I heard the demos, and I thought, this is great stuff. I love this stuff. It's kind of real, kind of poppy. It's not, and it was interesting. I hung out with the band for a while. We listened to the demos, and it got narrowed down to me and a friend of mine. Got rid of all the other engineers, and their manager called and said, they love you, man. They really like you. It's down to you and Neil. And I met with the band again, and I was like, what, your music is, I love it. I love these demos. And there were just 2 mics in a garage. And it was funny because I said, I don't even know what kind of music this really is. And they said, well, we're a punk band. A punk band. I'm thinking Sid Vicious and the Sex Pistols. This is not Sid Vicious and the Sex Pistols. It's got angst to it and all that. But long story short, what they eventually did, they went with Neil because he had the English accent. So yeah, then Neil, and then that band turned out to be Green Day, and the album turned out to be Dookie, which was a revolutionary record for the time, but nobody knew that. And when it did come out, it didn't really do anything for a while until MTV picked them up, and then the thing took off like a rocket ship. And Neil went on to do the Buzzcocks and a few others, and out of that, I hung out still with the band when they recorded that album. I'd stop in and check on them. I didn't feel, there was no hard feelings. I was just like, how you guys doing? Is it sounding good? Yeah, it's great, I always kept a positive attitude. And with that, Rob Cavallo, the producer, threw me a couple little projects, with the Muffs and a few other bands that he was sort of producing. So, and that was fine. I mean, but that point in time, that's when I was like, I'm being passed on all these projects. So, and the film thing kept kind of building slowly. The film post-production was very hard because nobody wants you to mix their movie unless you have credits, It's like, I got an $80 million film. Who we got mixing this film? Who hands are we going to put it into? Well, here's this guy. He doesn't have, I can't put it in, So it's a catch-22 like all these are. Like, well, I can't get any experience if nobody hires me. How am I going to do this, And eventually, the younger film directors would take chances on me. David Lynch took a chance on me, and that was one. And then I met the young Paul Thomas Anderson, and we hit it off. And Paul just, he made good movies. And David Fincher was another one. And eventually these guys started rising up in the movie world, and they hung on to me. And that's one of the things that helped push me to the level I'm at now is they just, I built a relationship with them, and they liked to be around me. They liked what I did. I wasn't too pushy, and they just enjoyed. It was a fun atmosphere, and that was the key thing, is making it a fun atmosphere and not being overpowering, I guess. And there's a fine line with all these things. I was always very quiet, and I never gave my opinion unless it was really asked for. And if I was on the fence about, should we go more this way or more that way, because in a film mix, there's a lot of people who have a lot of ideas, and it's the director's ultimate choice. But I would sit on the fence and go, well, I can go either way. And sometimes maybe that got me in trouble, but other times I think it saved me from putting my foot in my mouth, which I tend to do from time to time. So it was very helpful to do that until I learned the craft well enough. It took me years to really learn the craft now. And with the directors, I can almost have a non-language with them. Peter Jackson's one, and Tim Burton and Paul, we can look at a scene and they'll just look at me and go, that sound, yeah, got it. Let's get rid of that sound. Let's go feature more music, or, I'll get a new sound for that. I'll have the team get a new sound. So that's how I ended up. And the film business just started overtaking my music side a bit. I still get involved in music for scores, like Pixar always brings me down for the scoring dates for their movies with Michael Giacchino or whoever, Thomas Newman. And I go down and I listen and kind of give a perspective from a mixer standpoint, because sometimes they're so focused on just the music, they're forgetting the whole picture. Like, oh, there's going to be a sound effect there. You don't have to worry about that transition in music. Oh, right, yeah. They're worried about getting the right music. So sometimes I'm still involved in music in that sense. Anyway, that's kind of, and I kind of landed where I am. I come more mixing movies, and it felt very natural to me, and I still have fun doing it. So that's why I'm still here.